You, stop right there. Don't move. Put your hands where I can see them.
My hands are visible? What's going on?
I've had reports of suspicious activity. You match the description.
I just came from the bank.
What description? Turn around.
I'm not resisting, but I'd like to understand why I'm
I don't
being
need to
stopped.
explain anything. Turn around.
People always got a story.
Don't reach. Stop resisting.
This body cam footage begins with a police officer already shouting orders at a man standing outside a bank in Prince George's County. The man calmly insists he's a federal agent. The officer doesn't believe him, and what happens next leads to a $6 million settlement. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because the next story is one you don't want to miss. Officer Brett Kessler was 34 years old at the time of this incident. He had been with the department for just over 9 years. Within that time, his name had come up more than once in internal complaints, most of them tied to excessive force and conduct during stops. While none of those complaints had led to serious disciplinary action, there was a pattern. Kessler had a reputation among some colleagues for being aggressive, quick to escalate, and more confrontational than necessary, especially during encounters in majority black neighborhoods. That afternoon, he was on routine patrol in a commercial area of Prince George's County when he pulled into the parking lot of a bank responding to what he described over dispatch as suspicious movement. That's where he saw Darius Halbrook. At 38, Halbrook was an FBI agent with over a decade of field experience. Most of his work involved high-pressure investigations, where staying calm wasn't optional, it was required. He had no disciplinary record, no history of complaints, and was known by colleagues as someone who handled situations without overreacting. But at that moment, he wasn't working. He had taken the day off. He had just finished a personal transaction inside the bank and was walking back toward his car, keys in hand, moving at a normal pace. Nothing about his behavior stood out. Kessler saw something different. "Hey, you, stop right there." The command came before any conversation. Darius stopped and turned, immediately noticing the tone. The officer was already walking toward him quickly, posture rigid, hand hovering near his belt. "Is there a problem, officer?" Darius asked. Kessler didn't answer. "I said stop moving. Put your hands where I can see them." There was no explanation, no greeting, just escalation. Darius raised one hand slowly, the other still holding his keys. "My hands are visible," he said. "What's going on?" Kessler closed the distance, eyes fixed on him. "I've had reports of suspicious activity. You match the description." Darius looked briefly around the parking lot. People were coming and going normally, nothing unusual. "What description?" he asked. Kessler ignored the question. "Where are you coming from?" "The bank," Darius replied, nodding behind him. "I just finished up inside." Kessler stepped closer again, too close for a normal conversation. "Turn around." Darius stayed still. "I'm not resisting," he said calmly, "but I'd like to understand why I'm being stopped." That seemed to irritate Kessler immediately. "I don't need to explain anything to you," he snapped. "Turn around." There was a brief pause. Darius kept his voice steady. "My name is Darius Halbrook. I'm a federal agent. I can identify myself." That should have shifted the interaction. It didn't. Instead, Kessler's tone hardened even more. "Yeah?" he said. "You think I'm stupid? You think I haven't heard that before?" By now, a few people nearby had slowed down. Someone stood near their car watching. Another person lingered near the bank entrance. The situation was no longer private. Darius kept his voice controlled. "I'm cooperating with you, but you're escalating this for no reason." Kessler's response came fast. "No, what you're not going to do is tell me how to do my job." His tone had shifted from authority to something more personal. "Turn around, now." Darius hesitated for a moment, not out of refusal, but because he could see where this was heading. Still, he slowly turned. The moment he did, Kessler grabbed his arm aggressively and pulled it behind his back. "Hey, there's no need for that," Darius said, trying to keep his balance. "Stop resisting," Kessler shouted. "I'm not resisting," Darius replied firmly, but the grip tightened. Kessler yanked his arm higher than necessary, forcing his shoulder upward. "Relax," Darius said. "You're being too aggressive." "Quit talking," Kessler snapped. "You don't give orders here." Darius clenched his jaw, but didn't raise his voice. "I told you who I am. You're making a mistake." Kessler leaned in slightly, his voice lower now, but still hostile. "Yeah, we'll figure out exactly who you are." Then his hand moved toward his cuffs, and in that moment, the situation stopped being a stop and turned into something else entirely. Kessler's hand closed around the cuffs, and within seconds the first metal ring snapped around Darius Halbrook's wrist. "Stop moving," Kessler said sharply. "I'm not moving," Darius replied, his voice controlled but tighter now. "You're forcing my arm." Kessler didn't ease up. Instead, he twisted Darius's arm higher behind his back, pushing him slightly forward. "I said stop resisting." "I'm not resisting," Darius said again, more firmly this time. "You're the one escalating this." The second cuff clicked into place. People in the parking lot were no longer just watching, they were stopping. A man near a parked SUV pulled out his phone. Another person stood near the bank entrance, staring. Kessler took a step back, keeping one hand on Darius's shoulder. "Start walking," he ordered. "Where are we going?" Darius asked. "To the car. You're being detained." "For what?" Darius pressed. Kessler didn't answer. Instead, he guided, more like pushed, Darius forward across the parking lot. The grip on his shoulder was firm, unnecessary. "I've told you who I am. You haven't even tried to verify it." Kessler shook his head. "Yeah, because that story doesn't check out," he said. "You think I'm just going to take your word for it? I told you I can show you my credentials. You won't let me." "That's not how this works," Kessler snapped. They reached the patrol car. Kessler opened the rear door and immediately pushed Darius forward. "Watch your head." The tone didn't match the action. The push was forceful enough that Darius had to catch himself before hitting the frame of the door. "Relax," Darius said, trying to steady himself as he sat down. "There's no reason for this." Kessler ignored him and shut the door. For a moment, everything went quiet inside the car. Outside, Kessler stepped away, speaking into his radio. "I've got one detained. Subject was acting suspicious, non-compliant, possible false identification claim." Darius leaned forward slightly from the back seat. "Non-compliant," he said under his breath. "That's not accurate." Through the window, he could see Kessler pacing slightly, agitated, one hand still near his belt. Within minutes, another patrol car pulled into the lot. Backup. Officer Dean Pritchard stepped out first, followed by Officer Lewis Barron. Both looked toward Kessler, then toward the patrol car where Darius was seated. "What's going on?" Pritchard asked as he approached. Kessler didn't hesitate. "Guy claims he's federal, wouldn't follow commands right away, started reaching." "That's not what happened," Darius called out from the back seat, loud enough to be heard. Barron glanced toward the car, then back at Kessler. "He's saying something different," Barron said. Kessler waved it off. "Of course he is. They always do." That word again. Not loud, not emphasized, but consistent. Barron walked a few steps closer to the patrol car, looking through the window at Darius. "Sir, what's your name?" he asked. "Darius Halbrook. I'm an FBI agent. My credentials are in my front pocket. He wouldn't let me show them." Barron looked back at Kessler. "He says his ID is on him." Kessler's expression didn't change. "Yeah, and I'm supposed to just believe that? Anybody can say anything." Darius leaned forward again, his voice steady but more direct now. "Then check," he said. "That's all I've been asking you to do." Kessler stepped closer to the car, clearly irritated. "You don't tell me what to do," his voice rose again. "I'm asking you to verify information. That's your job." Pritchard shifted slightly, glancing between both of them. "Kessler," he said quietly, "we can at least check." "I've got it under control," Kessler cut him off. There was a brief silence. Barron looked back at Darius again, then at the small crowd that had started forming at a distance. "This is getting attention," Barron said. Kessler didn't seem concerned. "Good, let them watch." Darius exhaled slowly, leaning back against the seat. This didn't have to go this way. Kessler opened the rear door suddenly. "Step out." Darius looked at him. "For what reason?" "Step out," Kessler repeated louder. "I'm already detained. What are you trying to do now?" Kessler's patience snapped. "Don't start again. Step out of the car." Barron stepped slightly closer. "Let's just slow this down. We can figure out—" "I said I've got it," Kessler snapped again. Darius shifted forward slowly, stepping out of the car with the cuffs still tight on his wrists. The moment his feet hit the ground, Kessler grabbed his arm again. Same grip, same force. "Stand right there." "I am standing. You don't need to keep grabbing me." Kessler leaned in slightly. "Yeah, I do." The tension in the air was obvious now. Even Pritchard looked unsure. Darius turned his head slightly towards Barron. "My credentials are in my pocket. You can check them right now." Barron hesitated, then looked at Kessler. Kessler shook his head. "Not yet." That decision shifted everything again. Darius leaned forward, steady but more direct now. "So you're choosing not to verify who I am?" Kessler didn't respond. Instead, he adjusted his grip and looked towards the others. "We're taking him in," he said. Pritchard frowned slightly. "For what charge?" Kessler paused, just briefly. Then he answered, "Obstruction." Darius let out a short breath. "I asked you questions. That's not obstruction." Kessler stepped closer again, voice low and firm. "It is today." And with that, the situation moved past a simple detention into a full arrest decision that hadn't been justified. "It is today." Those were the last words Officer Brett Kessler said before turning away and signaling toward the patrol car. Darius Halbrook stood still for a moment, hands cuffed behind his back, processing what had just happened. "Obstruction?" he repeated. "That's what you're going with?" Kessler didn't respond. "Move," he said instead, guiding, again more like forcing Darius back toward the rear seat. "I asked you to verify my identity. You refused. That's on you." Kessler opened the door and pushed him inside. "Save it," he said. "You can explain it downtown." The door shut. Inside the car, the air felt tighter now, not because of the space, but because the situation had crossed a line that shouldn't have been crossed. Outside, Barron looked at Pritchard, then back at Kessler. "We're really booking him?" Barron asked. "That's what I said," Kessler replied. "For obstruction?" Pritchard added, his tone more cautious. Kessler turned toward them, clearly irritated. "You both saw him, non-compliant, arguing, reaching." Barron shook his head slightly. "He said he was reaching for ID, and we still haven't checked it." Kessler stepped closer. "And what if it's fake? What if he's lying?" There was a pause. Barron didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked toward the patrol car again, toward Darius sitting inside, calm but clearly focused. "Then we confirmed that too. That's the process." Kessler didn't like that answer. "You're overthinking it. We've got probable cause." "For what?" Barron asked. That question hung in the air longer this time. Kessler didn't answer right away. Instead, he turned away, walking a few steps, then speaking into his radio again. "Transporting one male, charging with obstruction, requesting confirmation at intake." Inside the car, Darius leaned forward as much as the cuffs allowed. "Officer, you're making a serious mistake." Kessler ignored him. "You still have time to fix this. Check my credentials before you take this any further." Barron looked back at Kessler again. "He's right about one thing. We should confirm before we move." Kessler turned back, his patience clearly wearing thin. "Why are you so quick to believe him?" asked Kessler. "I'm not. I'm doing my job." That shifted the tone again. For the first time, Kessler didn't immediately respond. Instead, he looked toward the patrol car, then back at Barron. "Fine. Go check it." Barron nodded once and walked over to the car. He opened the rear door slightly. "Sir, you said your credentials are in your front pocket." "Yes, left side, wallet." Barron looked at the cuffs, then back at Darius. "I'm going to retrieve it. Go ahead." Barron carefully reached into the pocket and pulled out a wallet. He opened it. There was a brief pause. Then his expression changed. Not dramatically, but enough. He flipped the ID open fully, looking at it more closely. Then he stepped back from the car. "Kessler," he called out. Kessler walked over, slower this time. "What?" he said. Barron held up the ID. "It's real." Kessler looked at it, then at Darius, then back at the ID. "That doesn't mean anything yet. Anybody can—" Barron cut him off. "No, this isn't fake." There was a shift in the air. Subtle, but clear. Pritchard stepped closer. "What does it say?" he asked. Barron didn't take his eyes off the ID. "Federal Bureau of Investigation, Special Agent, Darius Halbrook." Silence. For a few seconds, no one said anything. Kessler's posture changed slightly, not relaxed, but less certain. Darius spoke from inside the car. "I told you," he said. No anger in his voice, just control. Kessler exhaled once, then reached for the radio again. "Dispatch, run a verification on a federal ID. Name is Halbrook, Darius." There was a pause as the response came through. Everyone waited. Even the people watching from a distance had gone quiet now, sensing the shift. The radio crackled. "Confirmed. Active federal agent. Credentials valid." That was it. No confusion, no uncertainty. Confirmed. Barron looked at Kessler. Pritchard did the same. Darius leaned back slightly in the seat, exhaling once. And for the first time since the encounter started, the facts were no longer being questioned. They were established. But the situation hadn't been undone, not even close. Kessler stood there for a moment, saying nothing. Then he looked toward the car again. Darius met his gaze. "You had multiple chances to check. You chose not to." Kessler didn't respond, not with words. Instead, he reached for the rear door handle, opened it, and just stood there. The cuffs were still on. The charge had already been called in, and now every officer there knew this had gone too far, but no one had fixed it yet. The rear door stayed open, but Darius Halbrook was still sitting inside the patrol car, hands cuffed behind his back. No one moved immediately. Officer Brett Kessler stood there for a second, then stepped back like he needed space. The earlier confidence was gone. What replaced it wasn't an apology, it was hesitation. Barron broke the silence. "We need to take the cuffs off," he said. Kessler didn't respond right away. Pritchard stepped closer to the car. "He's confirmed," he added. "There's no reason to keep him restrained." Another pause. Then Kessler finally moved. He reached toward his belt, pulled out the key, and walked back to the rear door. Darius didn't say anything as Kessler stepped behind him. The cuffs came off. Slowly. No explanation, no acknowledgement. Darius brought his hands forward, rubbing his wrists briefly. The marks were already visible. He stepped out of the car. For a moment, the two of them stood facing each other again. Same spot, completely different situation. "You put your hands on me," Darius said, calm but direct. "You ignored everything I told you." Kessler avoided eye contact. "You were being detained," he said. "That's not what this was," Darius replied. "You made a decision before you had any facts." Barron stood off to the side, watching. Pritchard did the same. Neither of them stepped in. Darius continued. "I told you exactly who I was," he said. "Multiple times. You refused to verify it." Kessler shifted slightly. "You were non-compliant," he said. Darius shook his head. "I asked you questions. That's not non-compliance." There was no argument back this time. Just silence. The people who had been watching were still there, some of them still holding phones. The situation had already drawn attention, and now it was clear why. Darius looked at Kessler for another second, then stepped back. "I'm done here," he said. No one stopped him. No one said anything. He walked back toward his car, steady, controlled, the same way he had been before this started, except now everyone was watching for a different reason. Behind him, the officers remained in place, and for the first time since the encounter began, Kessler didn't have control of the situation anymore. The incident didn't end in that parking lot. Within 48 hours, the body cam footage was reviewed internally. By the end of the week, it had moved beyond the department. What stood out wasn't just the arrest, it was everything leading up to it. The commands without explanation, the refusal to verify identification, the physical force used early in the encounter, and the language. That pattern, start to finish, became the focus. Darius Halbrook filed a formal complaint first. Then came the legal action. The lawsuit outlined the sequence clearly: unlawful detention, excessive force, and failure to follow basic verification procedures. It also pointed to something else, something consistent throughout the encounter: bias in decision-making. The department opened an internal investigation. Kessler was placed on administrative leave. As records were reviewed, previous complaints against him were brought back into focus. Incidents that had been dismissed or minimized before were now being re-examined in context. This time, they didn't stand alone. The footage circulated, not just internally, but publicly. Once it reached that point, the response changed. Community reactions were immediate. Questions were raised about training, oversight, and how many similar incidents had gone unaddressed. The department issued a statement, then another, but the focus stayed on the video, on what people could see for themselves. Months later, the case moved toward resolution. There was no trial. The city settled. $6 million. The number itself drew attention, but it wasn't just about the amount. It was about what led to it. A routine stop that escalated without cause. Multiple opportunities to correct the situation ignored. A decision made early and carried through even when the facts didn't support it. Kessler was no longer on active duty. The department confirmed disciplinary action, but did not release full details publicly. Policy changes were announced shortly after, specifically around identification verification and use of force protocols during non-violent encounters. Darius Halbrook didn't speak publicly right away. When he eventually did, it was brief. "I stayed calm the entire time. That didn't change the outcome." No exaggeration, no extended statement. Just that. The footage remains part of training reviews, not because it was an extreme case, but because of how quickly it escalated and how long it continued after it should have stopped. A routine afternoon, a simple verification that never happened, and a series of decisions that turned a standard encounter into a $6 million mistake. If this story got your attention, make sure you subscribe to Culture Scope, because the next one might be even more shocking.